Ha. Third video recording. Still just spinning around, doing spirals. This is the way of life. Sometimes it feels like loops. Sometimes it feels like you're in a holding pattern, like you're just spinning in the same place. It's never really like that. May I encourage you that no matter what it feels like, you're always spiraling. A spiral implies different planes, different levels of awareness, different levels of consciousness, as we perceive it in this reality at least. And by the way, welcome. I know this is almost a minute in, but welcome or welcome back to Remembering Perfection. And that's really what I wanted to talk about, is the name of my channel. Because I seem to be, or because I seem to have this concern to some degree with being misunderstood. Less and less so these days, if I'm being honest. Getting to the point where, well, it's not, like, I can't make you understand anything. I can't make you do anything. You're you, you're having your experience. If you're meant to understand in any given time, you'll understand it when it's necessary, when it's right for you, when you're capable of perceiving the world in a different way. But I suppose this is really just for me anyway. All of these videos are. If there's anybody that, or if there's anybody that needs a reminder, I guess it's me, you know? Maybe that's not true, but that's the way I've felt in my life. And so this is what I'm doing, I suppose, to overcome it, if you will. But the point of my channel name, because I know that there will be objections. How could you say that life is perfect? Look at all the bad things that happen in the world, all the children being murdered, and all these other things that, yes, on one hand, you could easily define them in such a way to be horrific or hellish or whatever adjective or adverb or whatever word you would like to use. It doesn't matter to me, honestly. The reason I named my channel this is the recognition within myself that regardless of how things looked, regardless of how I felt in the moment, how I perceived things, how I judged things, whatever it was, everything in my life up to this point has been perfectly aligned to bring me to the place that I am today. Like a perfect formula. You couldn't get better than this. Call it whatever you wish. Karma is an appropriate word to me. People view that word as cause and effect. I think that it boils down to, whatever. The way I see it is that it boils down even further than cause and effect to a simpler thing. Karma is action. Your own action. And yes, your actions in the world, in this experience, have a cause and they have an effect. And so I see where they came to that conclusion for those that have perceived the word karma to mean that. But I perceive it in the simpler, more boiled down way, because I prefer to view the world in the most basic of terms, similarly to how you could say that we are all different beings having different experiences. On one hand, more simply to me, we are all one, having individual experiences. Perhaps that's not as good of an example, but that's the way I see it. And yeah, I'm vaping like a fucking monster over here. This is one of the few things that I haven't dropped in my life, as far as quote-unquote bad habits could go, if you wish to perceive it in that way, or wish to judge me for that, or whatever. Remember, judgments of perceived others are simply judgments about yourself. I heard something very interesting that pertains to this a little while ago that I have to laugh about and kind of agree with to some degree. And I'm not calling it's like I'm not comparing myself to these people in any way, but because we're all unique. There is no comparison. There is no need, no use, as far as I can tell, in comparison to other people. The only one you should compare yourself, the only one I compare myself to, let's put it this way, is myself. But in relation to yogis or sadhus, people on the quote-unquote spiritual path, if you will, the ones that are known for meditating in ashrams and isolating themselves from the world in large part, which is similar to what I have found myself doing in this life. I've heard several of these people, these incarnations, these fractals of God, say that what else ties me to this world if I don't have something like this in relation to smoking or drinking or whatever it is. It's like, how would I even be grounded? Or this is essentially like, this is my way of grounding into the world. And I could relate to that to some degree. Maybe it's a cop-out, maybe it's an excuse. I can recognize those things. I've been seriously considering just dropping this as well. And really, I've even gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, this is my last one. And I've said that before. Like probably many of you have as well, whenever it comes to whatever addiction, whatever, and you don't have to label it as an addiction, whatever habit, whatever thing it is that exists in your life and persists in your life that you don't prefer. That's really what it comes down to, is what is your preference? But that aside, on the tangent, going away from talking about my channel name, why I named it that, I believe I said last that it's the recognition of everything, every experience in my life leading perfectly to where I am. And I couldn't be happier. Maybe that's unfair to say. I probably could be happy. But I am perfectly content, we'll say it that way, with where I am right now. And I see the purpose, I see the meaning, I see the perfection in everything that has led me to this place. In my own estimation, I am in such a better place than I was in my perceived past. And I say that because in my past, I didn't love myself. I didn't experience that within me. I, like many of the people I've perceived in my reality, sought to find that thing that only you can give to yourself, which is unconditional love. I say only you. That's unfair in some ways. Because, of course, you can receive unconditional love from somebody else. In most instances, mothers provide that to their children. It's not to say that my mom didn't love me or that I didn't feel that love. I have been separated from my mother for a very long time, however. And so being, physically speaking, at least, and I think I did this, I know I did this on purpose. I separated myself from my family, in which maybe my mother was the only person to give me unconditional love and acceptance and understanding. And I love her for that. Love you, Mom, so much. I don't think you'll ever watch this video. Maybe you will. But who knows? Nonetheless, I, for all intents and purposes, put myself out in the cold. So that I could come back to the truth. Remember the truth. Remember. Put the pieces back together. Like all these myths about God's losing eyes, God's losing limbs. God's losing other things that are more naughty. Whatever it happened to be. Losing a part of themselves as they perceived it, you know? That's the point here. And then the myth going where they ended up, oh my gosh, beautiful pitch black crow right in front of me. Kind of a tinge of blue too. A little bit of white on the tail or something. Oh, gorgeous, buddy. Yeah, that's him. You can hear him, I'm sure. But this journey appears to me to be an opportunity. An opportunity to come back to yourself. To realize you've been whole the whole time. All of it. Your illusion, like your perceptions, your illusions. Say your perceptions and your illusions. They don't really necessarily belong to you. Maybe your perceptions do. The illusions don't. I think the illusions are just created as a result of the perceptions. And really, I have to correct myself again. I know. I know that the illusions are created by your perceptions. Where is he? Can you see him? There he is. Illusions caused by perceptions. Or maybe more accurately, misperceptions. Misattributions. Seeing things in an unhelpful way. And maybe that's the same as saying wrong. But I don't really believe in wrong. I guess I see things on a grayscale to some degree, and that's interesting given my outfit with so much gray. Though some blue too. I'm wearing gray shorts even. And I have, for some reason, my tan hat on. So I'm not really matching today, but fuck it. I do have a gray hat. I just forgot to put that one on instead. I just had this one on top of my stack of hats. Because I'm all about wearing hats for some reason. Wearing different hats. Which sort of makes sense given my experience. I've worn a lot of different hats throughout my life. It comes down to that simple thing of letting go of the things you've held on to for your entire life, or the things that you've, maybe not even your entire life, included among those are, and this is where I was going, unhelpful. That's the way I'm choosing to see, I'm deciding to see things now. Is that things are neither good nor bad, but I look at them on a gray scale of more or less helpful or useful. Because there is no right and wrong, there is no good and evil, unless if you insist upon it. And if you insist upon it, there's no judgment to you. Do your thing. This is your experience, by all means. See things however you wish to see them. It's all for your highest good, and it's all for you. That's what life is about, that it's all for you and your highest good. And I know it seems a little bit counterintuitive for me to say highest good after just saying there's no such thing as good and evil. Perhaps the more accurate way to talk about that or to refer to that is that there's no such thing as evil, because God created all things. And so they are all good. There is only good, if you must put a label on such things. Because it all comes back to the way I see good and evil as it's typically looked at as a judgment. And the way I see most people words. It's hard to... That's not a fair thing to say. Why would I say it's hard? It's not hard. I do find challenge in it, however. In some instances. Because it's all paradox. It's all the union of opposites. And I suppose the doctrine or whatever, the belief in such things as good and evil in the normal connotation of things really incites judgment, which comes back down to separating yourself from God, considering something to be not of God when everything is. And so this goes to, and also I recently watched a podcast that was very difficult for me to watch because I respect the man that hosted the podcast very much, Aubrey Marcus. Nothing against you. I love you, brother. I love you absolutely. But he had a conversation with, I believe the name was John DeMartini, who brought this concept out into the open. Absolutely, amazingly so. I love this man for doing this. Never heard of him before, but he's a psychologist. He's a scientific man. Similarly to Jordan Peterson, who I've learned so much from. And he holds this perspective based on his experiences that he's had as a psychologist, that there is no such thing as good and evil, except for the perception of that within you. And he brought this all the way down to horrible, as they would be judged in this world right now. And as Aubrey Marcus, of course, holds these beliefs, I found as I was watching the podcast, what made it so difficult to me in that moment of, they call it now because the YouTube algorithm is so oh boy. Ooh, excuse me. Censored in this way, grape, for instance, or murder, or assault, or whatever it is, SA. All these acronyms that people have had to come up with because of being shut down for just using words, which is a shame to me in some ways. Whatever happened to freedom of speech kind of sounds like a little bit of thought policing to me. More labels, more judgments perhaps on my account, but whatever the case, that all aside, those things aren't necessarily good or evil on their own. This goes back to my idea or my conceptualization. I call it mine. It's not really mine, it's other people's. You could say that I've adopted it to some degree. But everybody made their decision to go through certain experiences, to have certain things happen in their life. Even people, especially that were murdered. They signed up for it. They agreed to it. You may not remember the agreement. Most of us don't. The veil is persistent for many. Still to me in some ways. But I feel as though it's thinning. If you must perceive such a thing in that way. The veil of forgetting for those of you that are not familiar with that concept. Which is what we pass through, if you will, as the Hindus, I believe, conceptualize this at least. We pass through before incarnating into this body, into this experience, before becoming a physical being. Whereas we're always spiritual beings, we just happen to have a body right now. But that concept really resonates with me. Because it's like saying that God couldn't possibly plan this. Cutting yourself off. It's all ego. I'm not saying ego's bad. Ego's a necessary part of our experience. Keeps us alive, keeps us safe. It's a useful tool. It's a tool. Not meant to be a master. As far as I can tell. It's supposed to be a collaborative effort, just like all of reality is reflecting. So I guess the question is, do you want to separate yourself from God? Do you want to disagree that God is capable of all things, which is, stated in the Bible? Jesus said this, I am all things. And maybe Jesus didn't say that, because the saying goes, I am all things through Christ that strengthens me. But I take Christ as a metaphor for that presence, that being that is within all of us. Now I'm just walking because I realize I have to go to the bathroom. I've been drinking this Diet Pepsi, caffeinated drink, diuretic. Makes the system flush things out very quickly, that's for sure. But I guess I've gone way off tangent to the original purpose of the video, and that's all right. But I believe I did explain the reason why I named my channel as such, what it means to me. It's not to say that I don't even know if I should go forward with saying that, because I said what I said. And it is what it is. But either way, if you don't understand me, that's fine. I love you anyway. If you don't agree with me, that's okay too. You're not entitled or subject to my will. I'm just sharing my perspective, the way that I see things, for whatever that's worth. Hopefully it helps somebody out there. I love you. I wish the best for you. Until next time.